Have you ever locked your front door, taken 3 or 4 steps away, and then suddenly stopped? For a split second, a strange thought appears. Did I actually lock it? You walk back, grab the handle, pull it once, it's locked. You start walking away again. But somehow the feeling doesn't completely disappear. Instead, your mind whispers, maybe I only imagined locking it. So you check again. Most people have experienced some version of this, and what's fascinating is that it doesn't necessarily happen because you're forgetful. In fact, it often happens because your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do. We like to believe that we consciously remember every important action we perform. Locking the front door feels important. So naturally, we assume our brain should store that memory perfectly. But that's not how the brain works. Your brain is constantly trying to save energy. If it treated every routine action as equally important, you'd be mentally exhausted before breakfast. So instead, it quietly creates shortcuts. Psychologists often call this automaticity. It's the reason you can brush your teeth while thinking about work. It's why you sometimes drive home and barely remember the journey. And it's why you can lock your front door while already planning your entire day. Your hands complete the action, but your attention has already moved somewhere else. The movement happens. The lock clicks. The key turns. Yet your brain never creates a strong memory of the moment. Not because you forgot, because it never fully recorded it in the first place. That's where the strange feeling begins. Imagine leaving your apartment for work. You're thinking about the meeting you're already late for. You're wondering if you replied to that email. You're deciding what to eat for lunch. While all of that is happening, your hand automatically locks the door. A minute later, you're halfway down the hallway. Then your brain asks, wait, did we actually lock it? The uncomfortable part is that you can't answer with certainty. Not because the answer is no, but because there's no vivid memory to replay. Your mind searches for proof. Instead, it finds a blank space. And our brains don't enjoy blank spaces. We naturally prefer certainty over uncertainty. Even when uncertainty lasts only a few seconds, it can feel surprisingly uncomfortable. So your brain offers a very simple solution. Go back, check once more. The moment you pull the handle and feel that it's locked, your uncertainty disappears. Instant relief, at least for a little while. Here's the twist that many people never realize. That second check isn't actually strengthening your memory. Sometimes it can make things even more confusing. Why? Because after checking multiple times, the memories begin blending together. Now, instead of remembering one clear moment of locking the door, you remember several nearly identical moments of checking it. Ironically, the extra checking can make it even harder to remember which moment was the original one. It's a bit like reading the same sentence over and over until the words stop feeling familiar. The action becomes less memorable, not more. Another surprising detail is that this doesn't only happen with doors. Have you ever wondered whether you turned off the stove, whether you unplugged the iron, whether you closed the garage, or whether you sent an important email? Different situations, the same psychological pattern. Whenever an action is both routine and important, your brain is more likely to perform it automatically while also expecting to remember it perfectly later. Those two systems don't always work well together. One is trying to save mental energy. The other is asking for absolute certainty. And certainty is something the brain rarely guarantees. Researchers studying everyday memory have found that attention plays a huge role in whether an experience becomes a reliable memory. When your attention is somewhere else, the memory becomes weaker, not because your brain failed, but because it decided that the action didn't require much conscious effort. That's actually an efficient system. Without it, everyday life would feel mentally overwhelming. The problem isn't automaticity itself. The problem is expecting automatic actions to produce detailed memories. Once you understand that, something changes. Instead of asking, "Why am I so forgetful?" you start asking, "Was I actually paying attention when I locked the door?" Those are very different questions. One blames your memory. The other understands how memory works. And here's an interesting experiment you can try. The next time you lock your front door, pause for just 2 seconds. Feel the key turning. Notice the click. Look at the handle for a brief moment. Say quietly to yourself, "The door is locked." Then leave. Those 2 seconds give your brain something it often misses: attention. And attention is one of the strongest ingredients for creating a memory. You aren't making your memory stronger through repetition. You're making it stronger through awareness. That's a very different approach. The goal isn't to become obsessed with checking less. The goal is to understand why the urge appeared in the first place. Because most of the time, the problem isn't the lock. It isn't the door, and it isn't even your memory. It's the tiny gap between an action your body performed automatically and a mind that later asked for proof. Once you recognize that gap, the experience becomes a little less mysterious. And maybe the next time you're halfway to your car and that familiar question appears, "Did I lock the door?" You won't immediately assume your memory has failed. You'll remember something much more important. Sometimes the brain doesn't forget. Sometimes it simply never stopped long enough to notice. If this made you think about the last time you walked back to check a lock, a stove, or something you were sure you'd already done, you're not alone. These quiet mental patterns shape our everyday lives far more than we realize. Subscribe if you're curious about the hidden psychology behind ordinary behaviors. We'll uncover another invisible pattern your brain follows, and once you see it, you'll never look at everyday moments the same way again.